The program is about to resume. Please make your way back to your seats. Please take your seats. The program is about to begin. Please welcome back to the stage, Jock Rickey.
Thank you for taking the time. Great area to connect in. Couple of announcements for those of you standing. We have opened up more seating. Yes, the Leadership Summit went to standing room only. So we have more seating up here. I believe the black chairs. If you'd like to sit down, you're welcome to do that. It's great to see such a great crowd here. Thank you for coming. All right, my next part of the day is focused on the Central City Task Force. A year ago, we asked leaders from around the state, where would you like to see focus? And most of it came back to the Portland metro area. And as Portland goes, the state goes. And I think leaders from around the state understood that. There's been an amazing amount of people stepping up over the last year as we've thoughtfully put this together, and some amazing collaborations have been happening, of which you're going to learn more about today. But speaking of stepping up, we're going to do something pretty fun today, another new for the Leadership Summit. We're going to have a live mural that's going to get drawn for the next 90 minutes from Darren Todd, right here. Give Darren a hand. Thank you. You'll see Darren's murals actually around the city, as he has a very creative mind that's been doing that not only here but also in Central Oregon. You'll see some of his mural work, but we're going to see him go to work here based on what he hears, and we'll visit back with Darren around noon to see how it's going. The second people I want to thank also is stepping up. So we have this small little ad agency in Portland. You might have heard of him, Wieden & Kennedy. They have put to work the work that they do globally for so many brands, businesses, cities, whatever else they work on around the world. They've put their energy into Portland, and they've created the Portland is What We Make It campaign, along with done a lot of work on some video work, some other videos that you'll see about the city. But speaking of stepping up, Wieden & Kennedy has been amazing that they stepped forward in the late summer to come help the work that's being done in the city. And stepping up has been a big focus for everybody. And the way that you get to do big things is people step up and they do things that are out of their comfort zone to make things happen. Speaking of stepping up, I'd now like to invite Dwayne Henkins, the president of the business operations for the Trailblazers, to come up on stage and join me. Dwayne stepped up when we were trying to figure out what venue we wanted to use, and he said, "Why don't you come to my house? And you'll enjoy what it's like." So Dwayne, come on out, and let's chat a little bit about the Mona Center.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Well, on behalf of the Trailblazers, I want to welcome all of you. It's an honor to host all of you for the first ever Oregon Business Summit here in the Mona Center. The theme for this year's summit, as you've heard often, is thinking big, and so perhaps it's fitting that we've gathered at Oregon's busiest sports and entertainment venue. Many of you know the Mona Center opened in '95 and is home to the city's beloved Trailblazers. But we also welcome big-name concerts and many other popular events, all year round. And during a time when Portland has seen a drop in foot traffic, we are hosting more events than ever and attracting more than 1.5 million visitors annually, many of whom come from far and away to support tourism here in the city. Now, Mona Center, along with the visitors that we attract, generates $600 million in annual economic activity, which is the third largest regional impact of any organization. And as we think big about how to revitalize our city, we believe a renovated Mona Center will be a catalyst to grow even more foot traffic by expanding the sports and entertainment options that are on our campus. And it's why we recently announced our partnership with the Albina Vision Trust, a group dedicated to restoring the Black community of Lower Albina displaced in the 1950s and 60s in the name of urban renewal. And they're thinking big as well. Together, we're envisioning a thriving, activated, residentially diverse community of Lower Albina next to a renovated Mona Center and a reimagined Rose Quarter, complete with cafes, restaurants, bars, and community spaces. Thank you. A mixed-use Lower Albina would restore the fabric of the community by allowing families to come back to the district and thrive. And there's so much we can do, as you're hearing today, about the things we do and we think of big, work big together. And I'm just excited to have these conversations and looking forward to talking with each of you today. So welcome you again to the Mona Center for this year's summit. Thank you, John.
Dwayne is a member of the Portland Central City Task Force. And that Central City Task Force has been an initiative launched by Governor Tina Kotek and Dan McMillan of the Standard in August of this year. Let's hear more from some of the people who made this extraordinary effort happen. And by the way, like I said earlier, this isn't just about Portland. It's a model for how the rest of the state can approach the same problems.
Welcome to Portland, the heart of the Pacific Northwest. It's a city that embodies creativity, community, civically involved businesses, and endless possibilities. I'm Dan McMillan, and I'm excited to share with you why Portland is what you make it.
Portland is so much more than just a city. Its unique culture and spirit are vital, not just to those who call the city home, but to our entire state. The fact is that Portland is an economic engine for all of Oregon. That's why I initiated Portland Central City Task Force with my co-chair, Dan McMillan.
In the past few years, Portland has faced a myriad of challenges in the aftermath of the COVID pandemic and protests. Our city, like metro areas across the country, has changed dramatically in a short period of time, and it's time to take the wheel back. History will not define these years our challenges, but how we overcome them together.
Leaders from all sectors of Portland life have come together to shape a new vision for Portland Central City, with clear actions to address neighborhood livability, public safety, homelessness, and taxes. Let's hear from some of the many voices who are working to make change, each showing up to make Portland what it needs to be in their unique way.
Portland State University has Portland in its name, and we are very intertwined with the city. Our fate hangs on the fate of Portland. We are a pipeline and incubator of talent. We want our students to be able to interact with businesses, to find internships, and eventually to find placements there. And we want our businesses to benefit from the talents and the perspectives that our students bring.
Black Business Association of Oregon is an economic development organization that uses the best practices of economic development to help the Black community and Black businesses become more prosperous. Black people really want to be more contributive to the economy. They want to be more philanthropic to other organizations outside of our communities. We want to hire people. We want to be in a position where we can do more. And the partnerships that we've developed have been very fruitful. We've been very successful, and I'm very optimistic that we're going to set forward a model that other cities and states around the country will want to follow as to how you bring about prosperity, fairness, inclusion, and diversity.
Art and culture, and all of my colleagues in the cultural sector are at the table and need to be at the table because it is an important part of our identity as a state, in particular a city. Not only the visual arts, but the performing arts, the literary arts, musical, theater, all of these things coming together really are what I believe is going to rescue our city and move it forward in a positive, exciting way.
What's remarkable is the vast amount of work already underway in Portland. These voices exemplify the energy and commitment driving positive change in our city. Our task force aims to unite these diverse voices, align our efforts, and amplify their impact. Together, we're sculpting a better, stronger Portland, and we're acting with a sense of urgency.
We did not sign up for a long-term study. We signed up for action. Each of our task force committees has completed in just a few short months their action plans. Now it's time to charge ahead, and that's where you come in. Our elected officials, our business, civic, and nonprofit leaders, and every Oregonian has a role to play. This moment demands all of us stepping up and working together on real, concrete solutions.
We're really excited to bring Portland back because we believe in Portland, we believe Portland can do big things, and PSU wants to be part of that.
My dream for the city of Portland is to be the one city that everyone will take a look at to learn how we came together to bring about prosperity for Black Oregonians and Black businesses.
Art and culture is really about the human experience, and there's no doubt about it. Connecting with other humans, connecting with people, creating empathy, creating joy, creating beauty, creating hope is all part of what I think art can and should do. So I think the Art Museum is the perfect platform to sort of bring that to this community at a time where we really need it.
Portland is what you make it. So join us and let's get out there.
And remember, you are a part of what makes Portland so special.
And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Governor Tina Kotek. Throughout her professional career, first as an advocate for those in need, and then as a state legislator and Speaker of the House, Governor Kotek has been a leader who puts people first and has the drive to get real results for Oregonians. Please welcome Governor Tina Kotek.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm your governor, Tina Kotek. In case you didn't get that. What'd you think of the video? Thank you, Willamette Management. Wow, this is a big place. You know, it's absolutely overwhelming and exhilarating to see so many people here today. The collective optimism and hard work of this gathering feels amazing, and I'm really glad to be here, so thank you. There's one person who can't be here today, and that's Dan McMillan, CEO of the Standard, who you just heard from in the video. Dan has been my partner in marshaling the energy of community, business, and elected leaders towards solutions for Portland that you will hear a whole lot about today. He says his regrets and wants you to know that the only thing he would miss this for is his daughter's college graduation. I think we'll give him a pass on that. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Dan and the entire team at the Standard who have been with us every step of the way. Thank you to the folks at the Standard. So let's talk about Portland, and let's talk about progress, because I think we're having a moment. times of crisis can lead to a desire for drastic change, to tear down and rebuild again, and to overlook the progress that we've made in favor of something different. But when I look at this city, when I look at the leaders before me, what I see is potential. I see momentum, a fortitude to act. We have come this far, and we're beginning to see what's on the other side of our challenges. And that is precisely the moment when you keep going and push even harder. That is the moment we are in. I know that many Oregonians have been frustrated over the last few years, whether you live here in Portland or somewhere else in the state. I've been frustrated too. Sometimes turning on the TV, looking up at billboards around the city, or checking out news stories feels like reading an obituary of Portland, written by people who never truly knew it at its best, defining it by its worst. The truth is, Portland was never Portlandia, particularly for people living on the margins. Lack of affordable housing, poverty, racism, violence, and substance abuse have been issues in the city for decades, like most American cities. However, these issues have become more prevalent during and after the pandemic. The human suffering has been at a scale that we cannot afford to normalize or downplay. Whether you are sleeping on the street, struggling with an addiction, a nonprofit who is short-staffed, or a business owner whose employees don't feel safe coming into work. It's been a tough few years, and we all deserve so much better. So now let's talk a little broader about all of Oregon. At last year's Business Summit, I made a promise to visit all 36 counties in my first year in office and called it the One Oregon Listening Tour. I knew early on that my approach to this job was to lead by listening to people. Just last week, we visited our 35th county of the year, and we'll reach our 36th county before the year's end. Without fail, when we talk about the tour, people ask me, what has surprised you most about visiting all of Oregon? Well, I have lots of stories from the road, many memorable conversations. One thing that popped up time and time again was the shared desire for Portland to be successful. In every part of the state, I heard consistently a clear understanding that the city is Oregon's economic engine. People around the state believe in Portland, and they have high hopes for this city. My conversations with the Oregonians have reminded me that if we allow ourselves to be defined by our hardships, then we lose sight of who we are and what we can become. Many of Portland's challenges are not unique. What sets us apart is how we are working to solve them, right now, together. The solutions are not on the shoulders of the community, or government, or business alone. It's on all of us to solve things together. That is what we set out to prove less than 4 months ago, in partnership with Dan McMillan and the members of the Portland Central City Task Force. And today, our homework is due to you and to everyone who cares about this city. So unlike you, I raise an eyebrow at the idea of another task force being part of any real solution. But in August, when Dan and I convened a group charged with helping Portland and its comeback, we took a bet that if you put people in a room from different disciplines and life experiences to solve a shared problem, you can leave with concrete solutions. And I believe we've won that bet. We came up with 10 concrete action items focused on the next 6 months. that, if you've been following your feed, were released publicly for the very first time at 10 a.m. this morning. And along with a long-term vision for Portland's success and new partnerships to help make that change happen. I want to thank the incredible group of individuals on the task force, more than 50 people who came together. And there were 120 people who participated in the committees, and there were thousands of people who contributed their thoughts online, and we had more than 20 listening sessions. To the task force members who are here, who are listening as well, you showed up with 2 weeks' notice and committed to 4 months of intensive work. Thank you. In true Portland style, we did not agree on everything. We could probably spend another 4 months getting every word right. And there was fierce debate. And that's the beauty of Portland. It's a city worth fighting for and getting right. You'll get to hear a few words from the task force leaders today, some of them who will be on stage. They're going to share a vision for Portland's next chapter. Everyone on the task force had to adhere to one core principle. Don't dwell on the past, apply its lessons to the future. And that is what today is all about. Now, I would ask for a warm welcome to 2 leaders who played a pivotal role in the task force and who are critical to the success of many of these recommendations. Multnomah County Chair Jessica Vega Pederson and Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler.
Thank you so much, Governor Kotek. I appreciate the chance to share the stage with you this morning, along with Mayor Wheeler. And I am grateful to this incredible audience, to all of you for being here and for caring so much about our city, our county, and our state. We know that the biggest concerns of people living in Multnomah County and those spending time in our central city are homelessness, lack of affordable housing, addiction, and supporting those people living in crisis on our streets. Some of you may see today as a milestone, having the mayor, the governor, and I all on the same stage talking about our city. But for me, this is really about the culmination of a year of the 3 of us working together to address these urgent issues with partnership and coordination. The Central City Task Force gave us a critical opportunity to bring more people into that work and collaborate across local, state, and private sectors to develop tangible goals that can keep us all accountable and focused. That has also been the most important work of the county from the moment I stepped into this office in January. My priorities from that first moment have been moving people off the street into safer, more stable places now. That is why just this fall, we added funding to open or sustain 475 shelter beds across Multnomah County this year. This includes places for families, people in recovery, people who have been on the street far too long. And these investments partner with the state and the city of Portland to leverage resources to take urgent action now. This also includes making the shelters we have more effective by adding case management, peer supports, and housing placement rental assistance. It also means expanding day services across Multnomah County, so people who have nowhere to go during the day except sidewalks, parks, and streets get services and connected to care. My second priority is keeping people housed so they don't become homeless in the first place. The data is clear. We know that prevention is cheaper and smarter than trying to get somebody back into housing, which is why we funded $10 million in homelessness prevention and eviction legal defense to increase the services people need when they are on the brink of losing the safety and stability of their homes. And we've also made sure to focus on vulnerable populations with investments in culturally specific services for and by these communities. My third priority is expecting and pushing for more affordable housing. We truly need affordable units now, and we need units in development, which is why we recently partnered with Commissioner Carmen Rubio to triple the Portland Housing Bureau's most recent funding opportunity and directed $18 million to the development of 400 affordable housing units. Thank you, Commissioner Rubio. I also want to stress that all these more recent investments build on the core services we made possible in the budget that we passed in June, including 2,500 beds to keep people safe on and off the street, $61 million in rental assistance and housing case management, and a continued focus on equity, which is a key component of the goals of the Supportive Housing Services measure. I will say that one of the most powerful outcomes from the task force, outside of the recommendations that I'm here to share with you, is the opportunity to strengthen relationships, eliminate silos, and define a unified vision to address our homelessness and housing crises. Because we cannot do this work, and we will not be successful in this work, unless we're working in lockstep with the state, with the city, and with the many governmental, nonprofit, and private sector partners whose work intersects and informs our response. The better and more successful our partnerships, the better position we'll be to implement and maximize the work that is already underway and the plans that we're putting in motion now. I do want to be clear that the recommendations we're sharing this morning are very provisional and should be viewed in that light. While I appreciate the process that we're going to get to today, nobody, not even of those of us who were very close to the process, had eyes on the entire set of recommendations until a few days ago, which is why we'll be looking carefully at them and continuing to be in dialogue, especially with those communities most impacted by these recommendations, to consider what and how we implement from here. As the chair of the Task Force Homelessness Committee, we put in hours of work to make sure what we put forward is measurable, achievable, and will make the biggest impact in this crisis. I appreciate the power of diverse voices and experiences at the table, and we went through healthy conflict and extensive dialogue to resolve critical issues. I'm pleased to share the housing and homelessness recommendations with you today. First, increase safe and accessible options for unsheltered people. There are hundreds of unsheltered people in the central city who lack safe places to go during the day, and we must fix that urgently and strategically. The second, expand Central City's homelessness shelter capacity. In this area, our top priorities are both increasing the number of shelter beds we have and the flow of people through our shelters and into housing. The 3,000 shelter beds we're investing are much more valuable if the time that the people spend in them is short. And that's why we have made new investments that our partners have long asked for in wages for workers doing this work and in the support services that people need to get on their feet and back into housing. Our third recommendation is to address, especially at the state level, the lack of capacity in our behavioral health system. The system, yes. So I recently went to Portugal, and what I saw there was a system that truly was person-centered. Sanctions aren't imposed on addicted users who undergo treatment, and there's work across the systems to reduce drug use, prevent addictive behaviors, and decrease dependencies. That is why the system that we need in Oregon is about more recovery, with the state taking the lead in funding and opening spaces. Top priorities that came from our committee include residential treatment capacity, supersiding of residential and secure residential facilities, and more adequate resources for treatment linked to recriminalization of possession. Ideally, the amendments to Measure 110 will focus funds on creating more treatment, stabilization, and detox opportunities. We have recommendations that are all about increasing coordination and long-term stewardship of our multi-jurisdictional approach to solving this problem. And that leads me to an announcement that I'm pleased to share today. Last week, the mayor and I rolled out our plan to extend and enhance our intergovernmental efforts on housing and homelessness. Intergovernmental agreement is set to expire in 6 months, and we've been working intensely to develop a new comprehensive approach. This framework dramatically expands our coordination of our homelessness response system across our respective departments and bureaus, including our healthcare partners, and gets us aligned in dealing with the crisis people are experiencing on our streets. At the heart of these new agreements is the establishment of a homelessness response system that includes joint goal-making, strategic formation, and oversight of the larger system of care. There are 3 keys to effectively creating and implementing this response system. First, key performance metrics to assess the work of the Joint Office of Homeless Services. This includes identifying a baseline number of people experiencing unsheltered homelessness in January of 2024. We are setting bold new goals of attainable outcomes that we are going to be able to measure. A 50% reduction of those living unsheltered by December 31st, 2025. We are committed to reductions in racial disparities in our homeless population, coordination to increase the exits from shelter into housing by 50%, and a system to ensure that 75% of people housed in permanent supportive housing are still there in 24 months. And thirdly, we are setting up a truly coordinated approach that makes homelessness the priority across a system of jurisdictions, providers, and programs. Because the impacts of homelessness are felt across many areas of our work, from unsanctioned encampments to our first responders to the healthcare and justice systems, we need coordination across all of these systems. And this approach is going to do that for the very first time. It will make a difference in our central city, where the problems are acute, but also throughout all of Multnomah County. I do want to finish today by saying one thing. A thriving central city seems to consist of 3 things. First, office workers, and it is my hope that our business sector will step up the efforts to bring more workers back into our downtown core. Second, we need local residents in our downtown, which is why state funding for the development of affordable housing remains on my list of priorities to help our downtown. And lastly, we need visitors, which is where this county is stepping up to help. Last Friday, I announced with my colleague, Commissioner Lori Stegman, that the county will voluntarily redirect $12 million in tax revenues paid by visitors to support investments in cultural events, art venues, and the promotion of this great city that we all deeply love. Because we all know that it is time to love Portland again. There are many of us who never stopped loving Portland, but we want everybody to feel that love. And we have to be sharing that story throughout our downtown core. So I am glad that we are going to be hearing from more people on the task force committees later, but right now I'm very pleased to turn the podium over to Mayor Ted Wheeler. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to start by thanking you all for being here. I want to acknowledge a couple of groups that are here. First and foremost, I want to thank all of you who showed up this morning. That's a sign of love for our state, for our community, and I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be here and be part of the process of our ultimate recovery. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues on the Portland City Council who I see here. I see Commissioner Dan Ryan here. I believe Renee Gonzalez and Carmen Rubio and Mingus Maps are here with us this morning. I want you to know, as a council, we don't always agree, but this is the best city council I've ever worked with, and we are committed collectively to the recovery of this city. And I also want to acknowledge mayors that I see in this audience. I look around and I see a lot of my fellow mayors. I want you to know that we collaborate across this state. Republicans, Democrats, big city mayors, small town mayors, urban, rural. We are all on the same page with regard to the recovery of this state. I want to thank my colleagues from around the state for being here today. And last but not least, this is an add-on. I want to thank these young people for being here in the very front. Thank you for being here. I think it's really important that we have the next generation here, because frankly, we're talking about them and we're talking about the community that they are going to inherit. And it is mightily on my mind that we give them a clean, safe, workable, vibrant community. And so I really appreciate you young people hanging with us this morning. Governor, I want to thank you for bringing this task force together, and the Oregon Business Council for bringing us all into alignment. Look, we all want the same thing. We want this city and this state to recover, and the only way we can do it successfully is through collaboration. We have to work together, because we don't individually hold the keys to success. We all have part of the solution. And so, Governor, you're right. We have to come together and make this work. I want you to know that I appreciate the work of the task force and its many committees. And I enthusiastically agree that the issues facing our city and our state require us to come together. There's a role for all of us, the federal government, the state government, the local government, and importantly, private sector leadership. So thank you for providing us all with this forum here today. I also don't want to get lost in the details. The fact that the city of Portland is taking many concrete actions to provide leadership. We've taken action after action after action to address public safety, homelessness, livability, and economic recovery issues. All of these recommendations that are being made by the task force today are consistent with our Central City Recovery Plan. It is our playbook, and I'm pleased to see that these recommendations leverage the work that we're already doing. I encourage people to visit my website to see what that Central City Recovery Plan includes, and you will be very happy to see that we are in complete alignment. Let's talk about homelessness. I've made it clear that my goal as the mayor of the city of Portland is to make it so that it is not necessary for anyone to sleep in an unsanctioned camp anywhere in the city of Portland. As we achieve that goal, we also have to ensure that we're providing humane alternatives for people, including behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment, public health services, job training, whatever it takes to get people off the streets and help keep them off the streets. That's what we're going to do. Over the last 6 months, the city has created over 500 new shelter beds through our new temporary alternative shelter sites and through our existing Safe Rest Village program. I want you to know that these aren't just campsites. For the first time, as people come into these situations, they are being connected with a navigator. They're being directed to behavioral health, substance use disorder treatment, or other types of services that people need individually, tailored individually, to help them get off the street. We now have 184 people in our first task site. It is filled to capacity, and just in the last few months, dozens of people have gone through the programming, through the case management, and have been navigated to housing. This model works. And I'm pleased that the task force recommendations suggest continued support for the expansion of this model. And I want to thank the county, Chair Vega Pederson, on behalf of the county and all of the county commissioners for investing $24 million in our first temporary alternative shelter site. I also would like to acknowledge what the chair said about the new intergovernmental agreement with the Joint Office of Homeless Services. This is a huge step forward for both of our governments. And I want to thank the governor for $6 million through the first round of Oregon all-in funding that supported the city's temporary alternative shelter site. I want to thank you for that. We need continued support. With regard to public safety, I want you to know that this is a top priority for my administration. We are hiring new police officers in the city of Portland, and we are being very successful. We have hired 261 new personnel over the course of the last year. We have relaunched foot patrols in downtown Portland. We have developed a new partnership in alignment with the governor and the Oregon State Police, where state patrol officers and Portland police officers work hand in glove on a downtown bicycle patrol, and it's already been very effective. My colleagues on the Portland City Council and I passed $6.4 million in funding for private security in the downtown core. And we continue to work with private sector partners on a myriad of different programs, including the Downtown Clean and Safe Initiative. And we will double down. And with the efforts that have been put in by this task force, we will be able to leverage the work we're already doing and make it even better. And I thank all of you who served on the task force. I also want you to know that there is positive news. We tend to dwell on the negative. We tend to hear about the negative, and frankly, a lot of the reporting tends to be negative. But we are already seeing the recovery. We're seeing the turnaround. Gun-related homicides are down 27% year over year as the end of October, down 5% over the last 3 years. And I want to thank those members of the Portland Police Bureau who serve on the Enhanced Community Safety Team and the Focused Intervention Team programs we established in 2021 to intervene and prevent and investigate gun violence. They are having a marked, measurable impact, and it's something we should all be proud of. As the governor said, new deadly drugs like fentanyl and P2P meth are far more potent than their predecessors, and they are wreaking havoc on our streets. And it's important that one of the proposals of this task force is to support a statewide public use ban to help our public safety partners address the drug problem on our streets. I support it. The task force supports it. The governor supports it. So let's get it done. Livability is important too. Improving livability continues to be a top priority for my administration. Litter and graffiti and whatnot. Over the last year, we cleaned up over 300,000 square feet of graffiti through our new Portland Office of Environmental Management, sometimes called PEMO. PEMO has added lighting and other infrastructural improvements that help improve public safety in our streets and frankly make our streets appealing to the public. Their work has lit 75 blocks, expanding to 1,000 trees in 6 downtown parks, much of which, not all of it, but much of it is focused on the central city. And of course, we need to keep cleaning our city. And I am very happy with the task force recommendation to add $20 million to the pot to help ODOT clean up the state highways that run through our city. This is an urgent need. I'm very happy that the task force agreed this is an urgent need. I'm pleased that Governor Kotek is willing to champion this and push this through the legislature, and you will have my undying support for all of that. I've also asked that all levels of the public sector to refrain from adding any additional taxes or fees. And I support the recommended moratorium that is offered here as part of this report. I want you to know that the city understands the economic imperatives for business. We stepped up and we provided a first of its kind business incentive tax credit to businesses who either sign leases or recommit to leases in the central city. We're also creating 2 new tax increment financing districts to help spur investment in the central city. And one of those districts is squarely in the central city. And we're always welcoming suggestions for improvement. We welcome any recommendations that you have, and I encourage innovative solutions and partnerships from the business community. I'll finish by saying this. Since I have you all here and you're a captive audience, there are things that the business community can do that are not reflected in the task force recommendations. First and foremost, you can return to work. Thank you. At the City of Portland, half of our employees worked throughout the pandemic. They turn dials, they fix infrastructure, maintain our roads, they're public safety first responders. Half of them worked throughout the pandemic and still do. The other half, we worked with their labor leaders to negotiate a deal whereby they come in 20 hours per week. What we have learned is that it improves collaboration, it improves communication, and it improves productivity. It is good for business for people to be able to work together in teams across different service areas. But it also has the ancillary benefit of activating our downtown core. It helps commercial and retail enterprises. It helps restaurants. It helps to improve the situation on our streets. So I am encouraging all of you to join the city of Portland in bringing your employees back. You don't even have to be heavy-handed about it. It doesn't have to be a mandate. It can be incentives. It can be offering opportunities for advanced learning. It can be bringing people together for social occasions. But encourage your employees to come back to work. And I want to second what the governor said earlier in her remarks. Look, if we're trying to market our city, if we're trying to lead the comeback, if we're trying to create a narrative that is positive, that turns the tide on the reputational damage this city has suffered over the last several years, then why on earth would anybody in this room fund a program that puts building-sized billboards throughout our downtown that says homelessness, increased crime, drugs are a scourge in our city? Nothing tells me we've lost more than when a group of out-of-town convention advocates stands in front of one of those billboards and takes a selfie. How is that helpful? It's not. So let's take our dollars and let's invest in positive messaging, or at least, can we please invest in accurate messaging? As I said, crime across the board, not in all areas, but in most, is down. And finally, please support this task force's efforts around a statewide ban on the public use of drugs, so that cities can reclaim our streets and our sidewalks and our public spaces. I appreciate, Governor, everything you have done to bring us together. There's a lot of momentum. I look forward to continuing to work with you to fill out the details. And I want you to know that on behalf of all of us at the City of Portland, we stand ready to lean in. We stand ready to work with you. We stand ready to champion any cause that you believe will help us recover our community, because that's where we are headed. We are not delving in the past. We are heading to the future, and your report recognizes that. Thank you all. Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
If you take away one thing from today about the work that the county and the city and the state are doing together, it is alignment, it is amplification, and it is energy. And we are all in this together. So thank you. Another round of applause for our mayor and our chair for their great work. Okay, now we have some opportunity to hear from some of our chairs of our committees from the task force, and I'm excited to bring on stage Senator Kate Lieber and Rob Stuart, CEO of OnPoint Community Credit Union, to the stage. The Senator and Rob co-chaired the Community Safety Committee. Welcome. Good to have you. You're coming somewhere here. We're going to discuss the 5 key recommendations that emerged from the Community Safety Committee, which, not surprisingly, was the largest committee of the task force. We came up with some big ideas, including a tri-government fentanyl emergency. 3 governments working together to say we have to be stronger and more coordinated on the fentanyl crisis in our streets. One of the recommendations is a request to the legislature to ban public use of controlled substances, as well as reduce barriers to prosecuting drug delivery. Another recommendation is ramping up the existing infrastructure to connect people with effective treatment. We have to maximize what we're doing. Another recommendation talks about focusing peer and outreach services that are already here, focusing them in the central city. And lastly, but across the board important, is elevating the law enforcement response, which we have been building in the central city. It's already underway, and we need to take all of those things into 2024. And with that, please welcome to the stage Senator Lieber and Rob Stuart.
Well, hello there.
Hello. Good to see you. Breaking up the mode here a little bit.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
What do you think?
group.
Not bad being down on the floor,
Not
yeah?
bad. No, you're probably glad to sit down.
Yeah, well,
Right?
you know. It's just fun to be, look at, I love the ticker.
It's awesome.
I've just been watching it all morning. It's fantastic. Well, we're glad you're here. The theme of the community safety group was really honing in on that collaboration that we need. Community safety was a topic that kind of was embedded in all the conversations of the task force. We have two wonderful co-chairs, and Senator Lieber and Rob Stuart. So I'm going to start off with Senator Lieber. Tell us a little bit about the process, how you came to these decisions.
Sure. You know, you gave us a charge. You know, you told us that you wanted to make sure that we did something bold, something visible, something immediate. We knew we had to take care of making sure we could connect people to treatment, making sure that we had the correct tools for our law enforcement, and, you know, really making sure that Portland is safe and that all Oregonians can utilize the central city and feel safe. And that was really of utmost importance. So the process, thank you for giving us the largest task force.
Okay.
So that was fun. But, you know, we brought together community leaders, business leaders, both big and small business, elected leaders at all levels, right? Federal, state, county, city. We had law enforcement leaders, we had treatment providers, and we had honest conversations and robust conversations about the problems that Portland is facing. And we all could agree that what is happening on the streets of Portland was unacceptable.
Correct.
We really dug into some of those problems, and I think one of the biggest things we really discovered was just the complexity, right? We have complex systems. We have the criminal justice system, the behavioral health system, and those complexities need coordination. We wanted to make sure that we had tools for police officers to make sure that they could do the jobs that they need to do. And we wanted to make sure that we had alternative responses as well, because our police cannot solve this alone. And we know that we've got to make sure that we build up our public health response to this very, very real crisis.
Well, I just want to say thank you for, I hope you're all still my friends after giving you the most complex committee. You know, one of the things, building on that sense of the intricacies and complexities of the system, is one of the major recommendations, which is the state, the city, and the county, each government needs to declare a state of emergency around the fentanyl crisis. So we're going to do that. And set up at least a 90-day structure of enhanced coordination. And some people are like, well, what does that mean? When government declares an emergency, it provides flexibility around existing resources, around existing staff. We're going to literally have a place for folks who are working on these issues right now to get in better alignment so we can maximize what we are doing. And so we're all in on that. And you'll be seeing more details of that in the next month to get that set up so we can be prepared as things change, potentially from legislative action. So, Rob, I just want to thank you and your leadership at OnPoint for being so committed to the Central City.
Thank you for the opportunity, Governor. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome. I'm sure you were like, how did I get to be co-chair of this committee? But, you know, so tell me about what it's been like for you, and let's talk a little bit about those issues around public use that is a focus.
You bet. It is, first of all, it's been an honor and a pleasure to have the opportunity to serve. And having the opportunity to work with such a diverse group of individuals, business leaders, lawmakers, has been both rewarding and it's been incredibly challenging. And I want you to know that we took your leadership to heart, the direction that you provided when you said, quit thinking about the past and start thinking about the future and in coming together. And understanding that everybody walked into that room with their own set of ideas and their own plan. But what ended up happening as we continued to meet and as we continued to work together is you could start to feel the collaboration and the work together, understanding this isn't just a government issue, this isn't just a business issue. We have to work together. The one thing that we did agree upon immediately and rapidly was public drug use. And that is something that obviously we'll be talking about.
Yep. And also the challenges of prosecution, which apparently
Absolutely.
it's not only the public, but that, and I know we have a legislative leader here, but legislature is going to take this on, right? That's the plan.
The legislature is absolutely going to take it on, and it is the opportunity that we have in this particular situation is that for the community, for workers, for visitors to our city to have the confidence to come and be a part of downtown, public drug use has to stop.
Right.
And the prosecution of how that happens needs to ramp up. And so we want everybody to understand that we appreciate the fact that this is not an easy topic to discuss. And my counterpart, the senator, is going to have the opportunity to take this on in the session coming up. And so I'd like to turn it over to her to talk a little bit more in depth.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, we've got to stop visible drug use in Portland, period, hard stop. It's unacceptable. And the legislature is acting, right? We've got a joint committee on drug crisis and community safety response. It's a fairly unusual step. We're meeting outside of the legislative process. We've already had hours and hours of testimony. And we are going to be looking at this issue along with many other complex issues in this space, as well as making sure that we give prosecutors, they need to have the tools they need to have to make sure that we can go after drug dealers, because we've got to stop the supply as well. So we will be acting in February.
Yes, thank you. Well, and again, alignment, right? Everybody rowing in the same direction, including our colleagues at the state legislature. So thank you. And in anticipation of change, one of the recommendations that came from your committee was ramping up, being prepared. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, look, this cannot all be on the backs of law enforcement. We must ramp up both peer services, right? We've got to make sure that there are more peers that are out in the community, helping law enforcement, partnering with law enforcement, making sure, there you go, I like a good clap in a room, all right. Making sure that we can let law enforcement do what they really need to do, and making sure that the public health side of this crisis is addressed appropriately. So we got to ramp up the infrastructure. We've got to make sure that we've got the people in the right spots. And as we continue to collaborate, I think that collaboration between public safety and public health is going to be the key to getting us out of this crisis.
Agreed. And one of the other things that you spent a lot of time on the committee was really looking at existing resources and how we could, of what we have on the ground right now, can we spend more time in the central city? Because it takes a while to hire up new people and things like that. So talk about that piece of focusing on the central city.
Yeah, I think that if you can, I think small to think big, right? And make sure that we can prove a model. I think a model of making sure that you've got peers out that are partnering with law enforcement, making sure law enforcement is able to enforce the law, making sure that there are appropriate places to take people. We need a 24/7 sobering center that I know Multnomah County is ramping up. We've got to have alternatives for those on the street, and I think we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make sure that these two systems were talking to each other and working together. And in the short term, before we can ramp up and really hire, we want to concentrate in a smaller area to really prove the concept of what we're trying to do here.
Yep, because the goal is to make progress. And law enforcement is a key part of community safety. It's not the only part, but it is a part. So Rob, tell us a little bit more about, there was a lot of conversations about the citywide challenges and what we can do in the central city. So where did we land?
Let me start off by thanking you for putting the state police in downtown Portland to make a difference during an important time. That was something that needed your leadership, and we appreciate that very much. And that presence is incredibly important, and happy to report that it's continued to be expanded and grow throughout into 2024. It is a proven fact that police presence increases employment confidence, tourism confidence. It adds a complete layer of confidence to the overall city,
and it allows more people to come down and be a part of the central city to enjoy restaurants, to shop, and to do those things that we believe that is incredibly important. This was a tremendous amount of conversation went around the entire policing conversation on this particular task force. It was wonderful to have an opportunity to work with both chiefs of police of Portland Public, the Portland Public Police Department, as well as city, county, sheriffs, state, having an opportunity for us all get together and to collaborate. And I'll be very candid with the group. In the beginning, there was a lot of posturing that took place. There was a lot of, you know, it's my budget, this and that. What ended up happening is you could actually see the collaboration coming together for a better overall policing of the city. One of the things that was heard loud and clear is that police cannot do it all. We have to have all of those additional services that are needed to make sure that police can focus on crime, and that all the other agencies are there supporting the police department so that we can work in harmony for a good point moving forward. Those discussions were incredibly passionate. They were, there was lots of opinions, but we all agree in the governor's direction that we're going to start now and look forward instead of worried about working backwards. And continued focus on areas that have worked so incredibly well. Portland Clean and Safe is a perfect example of a group that is working really, really well, and the continued expansion of that will be great. So, continue to see increased police presence into 2024 in the downtown core area. Continued opportunity to work with the state of Oregon in educating new and upcoming police officers, as we know that, as the mayor stated earlier, the ramp up of the existing police force so that people are getting trained properly. And an overall police presence so that we can take a stand now and start having things move in a positive direction moving forward. Yeah.
And I just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Governor, really, and really thank my partner in crime here, Rob Stuart, who we had a great working relationship. I really appreciated it. And I am so hopeful. I really am. I mean, we're seeing the city in a new light with collaboration. Yes. I think with the business collaborating with government that's collaborating with both state and federal and county and city, and I think we even saw it today here on this stage. Absolutely, it is. If you can't feel it, especially when you're hearing the mayor and the county and everybody coming together, you're starting to feel that positive momentum and that positive direction moving forward. Governor, thank you for taking action and putting us together. We're excited to work together.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Senator Lieber, for your work.
Appreciate it. Really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. I do worry that people are going to stop taking my phone calls when I ask them to do that much work, but they were amazing. So let's move on to our next committee. So let's talk about our Livability Committee. And how a city looks, whether you live here or you're visiting, is really important. And we have high expectations for this city. And so there was a Livability Committee that brought in all kinds of individuals who had great ideas trying to, how do we focus what we're doing here to make sure our city is clean, and that we have less graffiti, and that it's the city we want it to look like. And the top ideas coming out of the Livability Committee, and by the way, go online, there's a lot of different things. We're only highlighting the top recommendations for the early part of 2024. But as the mayor mentioned, there was a strong interest in making sure the state steps up to take care of ODOT properties, so I'll be asking for $20 million in state funding in the 2024 session to make sure that as a property owner in the city, the state is doing its part. There was also a lot of conversation about coordinating, collaborating with our existing nonprofit partners for trash and graffiti removal and prevention. So there'll be more work going on there, and we'll need some volunteers. You'll be hearing that from our next speaker. And Prosper Portland is bringing in $500,000 to work on public art and the approach to our public spaces that will help reduce graffiti in our city. So the other thing that is part of how our city feels and looks is we are recommending bringing down the 2020 era fences and plywood in the central city. So it's all about how it looks. because that's important. Now, let's hear from Vanessa Sturgeon, President and CEO of TMT Development and head of the Livable Neighborhoods Committee. And right after her, we'll be hearing a little special message from Tim Boyle, President and CEO of Columbia Sportswear. Please welcome Vanessa Sturgeon to the stage.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Governor Kotek, for the introduction. The Livable Neighborhoods Committee's charge was to outline key steps to restore Portland as one of the cleanest cities in the United States, with recommendations to mobilize state, metro, and local resources to the task. Our committee's work was focused on issues that are invisible to the city until they're problems. Trash, waste, and graffiti have become visible problems across the city and impact the viability of business, as well as the feeling of residents and visitors about Portland. Many people visiting Portland, no matter their destination in the state, travel through Portland International Airport and quickly see garbage and graffiti lining our highways as they make their way to their destination. Residents, employees, and visitors consistently point out garbage and graffiti as impediments to frequenting our central city. Our community was focused on actionable solutions with visible impact to signal that our community is committed to cleanliness. A competent cleanup strategy first starts with measurement. We can all see the problem now, but we need better analytic tools to track improvements as the work begins. The City of Seattle's Find It, Fix It app is a good example and something that we would like to model. The beauty of this app is that there is feedback on the follow-through as it happens, and problems are reported by citizens, and when the problem is fixed, the reporter is notified and gets a photo of the remediated issue. And our committee didn't wait for this summit to act. Thanks to the governor's focus, we now have streamlined processes by which volunteer organizations can access ODOT properties for cleanup, and the governor will request $20 million from the legislature for state-funded work on our highways. At one of our meetings, the committee expressed concern about Union Pacific Railroad's properties. So in October, the governor called up Union Pacific CEO and partnered to prevent trash and graffiti on their rights of way. Governor Kotek, thank you for your leadership. Assuming a legislative win on those ODOT cleanup funds, the public sector has ramped up its focus on weighty issues. But the gravity and scale of the problem is so big that we all need to be part of the solution. It requires public-private partnership. Portland is blessed with nonprofits and thousands of committed volunteers. Solve, Adopt One Block, and Trash for Peace, to name a few. A key to our committee's strategy is systemically unleashing those volunteers across the central city during the next 3 years. Most of the labor comes to us without charge, but volunteer efforts require supplies, management, and some resources for recognition. The committee was on the lookout for passionate civic leaders who would be willing to raise awareness and champion these efforts. Someone who loves Portland deeply and is eager to clean it up. We didn't have to look far, did we? It's my pleasure to introduce Portland's garbage champion, Tim Boyle.
Garbage champion. How's that? Well, I'm going to apologize in advance that I have a little bit of a cold, so they allowed me to use this remote microphone. But I'm just thrilled to be here today, but I have to start with a confession. I have developed an unhealthy obsession with trash on the roadways around Portland. I've been so obsessed with getting it cleaned up, my family and friends look at me like I'm insane. You sound crazy, like you're Elon Musk, they sometimes say. By the way, that was not they, that was my wife. I'm an admitted trash-talking CEO, but a different kind. It's a fixation that began 4 or 5 years ago when I couldn't help but notice an increasing number of Columbia customers who were visiting Oregon from around the country and around the world, and an increasing number of potential employees we were trying to lure here, were all telling me the same thing. What they all said was something like this: "Hey, Boyle, you've been bragging that Portland is one of the cleanest and greenest cities in the United States, when actually there's trash and graffiti on every freeway and highway. This place is a dump." My trash mania soon spiraled out of control. I talked about it incessantly. My wife's first reaction was, when are you going to stop talking about freeway garbage and start taking out our garbage? Once I did that, her second reaction was to stop talking and start doing. So I went to a variety of elected officials, and I urged them to do something, anything, to clean up our roads. This will sound familiar. The city said it was Metro's problem. Metro said it was the county. The county said the state was to blame. They all claimed they lacked the financial resources to clean things up. Frankly, that pissed me off. I asked if concerned citizens like me could provide the financial resources to the Department of Transportation to do the job. The bad news was it took about a year for the state of Oregon to answer my question. The good news, when they finally responded, the answer was yes. So I made a substantial donation to ODOT. 1 year later, ODOT, wait a minute. 1 year later, ODOT called back. They'd changed their mind. They returned my money. In short, not only were they unable to pick up the trash, they were unable to pick up the cash. Regardless of the route or the method of transportation that brought you here today, you saw plenty of evidence that the problem has only gotten worse. When Governor Kotek took office this past January, I heard a report that she shared my trashy fixation. She famously said, and you'll remember this, "You don't need to take a hard right turn to pick up the damn trash." We met, and she assured me that cleaning up our roads was a priority for her administration. That priority is evidenced by the fact that the Livability Committee of the Central City Task Force is advancing an action plan to restore Portland's reputation as one of the cleanest cities in the United States. This effort includes additional state funding for litter and graffiti cleanup in Portland, and includes a willingness to accept donations from business and individuals who share my trash affliction. No doubt trash and graffiti are complicated issues. Sometimes the solution to a complex problem is to go back to the basics. We find these truths to be self-evident. I can't take credit for this statement of the obvious, which I hope you will see displayed all over our city. It was the good folks at Wyden Kennedy who agreed to augment their Portland is what we make it campaign with this simple message. This sign will also tell Portlanders where they can go to help. Work is to begin soon. The first section of Portland Freeway to be cleaned up under the plan is 405 from Nikolai to Nadeau Parkway and west to the east entrance of Highway 26 Tunnel, a section of the highway that sees over 100,000 trips daily. That's 100,000 chances to improve the impression of Portland and to prove to Portlanders that something is happening. More miles will be added to the cleanup effort as resources come in. I'm pleased to personally make the first contribution to this effort, and Columbia Sportswear is all in. I've also spoken to John Donahoe at Nike, and he told me Nike's all in. So warning, I'll be calling stakeholders in the Portland area, including the business community, labor unions, media outlets, and nonprofits, to ask for them to join us. Please take my call. Last weekend, I had the privilege of attending the Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C., and I can't help but conclude by paraphrasing what were perhaps President Kennedy's most iconic words. Ask not what Portland can do for you, ask what you can do for Portland.
So please take his calls. Thank you, Tim. That was amazing. This is our city, folks. Let's take it back. Let's make it look the way we want it to look. So on to another committee. We're going to talk about the Tax and Services Committee, and we will be hearing from the chair of that committee, Charles Wilhoite, Managing Director of Willamette Management Associates. I want to thank him for chairing that committee. Probably one of the more complex ones to take on as well. The committee is recommending a moratorium on new taxes and suggesting targeted tax relief for our businesses in the central city. So let's hear more from Charles. Welcome Charles Wilhoite to the stage.
Thank you, Governor. Well, good morning. Thank you very much, Governor. Thank you for the opportunity to serve as well. I want to take this opportunity also to thank the committee members. They were very committed and very diligent throughout the process. And we would not have made it to this point without the wonderful support of Echo Northwest, Brittany Badgent, Madeline Barron, Mike Wilkerson, and John Tapania, who is ever present. Today, I'm going to share our process with you and our recommendations as indicated by the governor. But first, I'm going to give you a little context. The tax and services landscape changed significantly in Portland during 2019 through 2022. The state of Oregon and the city of Portland each enacted versions of gross receipts taxes to fund education and energy investments, respectively. And locally, voters approved 2 income taxes to fund supportive housing services and universal pre-kindergarten. The services associated with the tax increases are critical, as evidenced by broad voter support. However, the associated tax changes taken together were abrupt. Ernst & Young estimated that the total taxes paid by Portland-based businesses increased by 32% during 2019 through 2021. And on the household side, Portland now has the second highest marginal income tax rate in the United States, behind only New York City. We heard talk a little earlier from Sean Walters at Daimler and Senator Wyden about being number one. Well, I don't think we want to be number one on the tax burden list, but as you can see on the slides behind me, we are second only to New York City in the income tax for individuals, and right in front of California. Once again, it's good to strive to be number one, but being number one from a tax burden perspective is something I think we do not want. This slide also shows that while we're second in marginal income tax in the country, we're number one in marginal income tax at the state and local income tax level. These are things that we can't survive, and these are things we need to change. Just so you know, there may be a few sheepish grins at your table, and you might be wondering why anyone would smile at such news. Well, these are likely to be members of my extended CPA and tax family. Needless to say, when you make a living addressing someone else's tax problems, you can't ignore the silver lining in the clouds of confusion and complexity created by our tax structure. And Derek was speaking a little earlier about being hip. Well, I have a 23-year-old son. He spent his first year in the tax world this year, in the accounting world this year. And he said, "Tell people, Dad, You have to appreciate, not hate. So I've given you a line today: do not hate your CPAs. One day you will need them. And I don't know why anyone wouldn't have a CPA as one of their best friends, particularly a tax expert. Ranking second on the national income tax burden scale would be notable anywhere, but it's especially notable when you neighbor a state with no income tax. There's been a long-standing concern, at least among economists, that people ultimately might act on those interstate tax differences. And then, for the first time in many years, we saw people and dollars moving out of Multnomah County. In the past, IRS data would often show more income coming into Multnomah County than leaving. But coincident with the tax increases, we now see income taxes on income moving out at the level of $1.2 billion in 2021. This slide indicates that from 2013 through 2016, we saw an increase in income in our region due to migration. But 2016 through 2019, we saw that we are experiencing a loss of income as a result of migration. From 2019 through 2021, that loss increased from $159 million to $1.2 billion. That's income that would generate funding to address the housing, the mental health issues, and the addiction issues that we've heard about earlier in the program. There are many possible causes for the change in migration and income taxes and income, but the prime cause, we believe, is our tax burden. This is associated with shifts to remote work and expensive housing. With these findings as a background, the committee went to work on two primary objectives: an overall assessment of taxes and services, and identifying specific changes to the existing tax structure that could attract workers and businesses to the central city. As it is often the case in a setting like this, someone has stolen some of my thunder, and Mayor Wheeler also already spoke about our number one recommendation. We do recommend a 3-year, from 2024 through 2026, moratorium on new taxes for jurisdictions in the greater Portland region that impact the central city. Once again, this is new taxes. The tax moratorium would only apply to new tax measures and increase to existing taxes or fees that impact the central city. Our second recommendation is we call for the creation of a tax advisory group to review and recommend reforms to local, county, and regional taxes, as well as the fundamental taxing structure, and to make recommendations regarding system adjustments. Our third recommendation is the committee would like to see an expansion of the new business license tax credit program. The City of Portland recently implemented the credit to encourage businesses to relocate or extend their commercial leases within a small section of the central city. This was a valuable development, but the pilot program is limited in geography and scope. The committee recommends evaluating an expanded program via a Multnomah County and State of Oregon match program. Additional funds could support businesses located outside of the relatively small pilot geography, microenterprises, and businesses with fewer than 15 full-time equivalent employees, and nonprofit organizations. Finally, the committee was introduced to 16 other city, county, regional, and state tax incentive concepts. Of those, we conclude 12 warrant further study and encourage the city, county, and state to evaluate them. So those are our recommendations, and once again, on behalf of the committee, we appreciate the opportunity to serve this city and this wonderful state, and appreciate your presence today. I'll turn it back over to you, Governor Kotek.
Thank you, Charles. Now we will hear from the last committee of the Portland Central City Task Force, the Value Proposition Committee, which we quickly coined as the Optimism Committee. This committee was about giving Portland a North Star and defining our success in 2024 and beyond. Here's just a few of the metrics that they have brought forward. Everyone feels welcome and safe in public squares, along the waterfront and in concert halls, arenas, museums, and parks. Open drug use is rare. Streets are clean and free of litter. Graffiti is abated quickly, and the plywood is gone. The media and civic and business leaders are telling a positive story about Portland's recovery. Now it's my sincere pleasure to introduce and make sure we hear from the committee chair for the Optimism Committee, Nolan Lienhart, who is the Director of Planning and Urban Design at ZGF and the chair of the Value Proposition Committee. Welcome, Nolan.
Thank you, Governor Kotek. I had the honor to chair this committee, and let's get my notes going here. As she mentioned, we quickly dubbed ourselves the Optimism Committee. While other committees were tasked with dealing with the challenges of Portland Central City, our job was to think about how can we maximize and strengthen the reasons people actually want to be here when they could be anywhere else. What would make a business owner open a business in the Central East Side when they could open it in Vancouver? What would make someone want a nurse at OHSU want to live in the South Waterfront when they could live anywhere else in the region? What makes a Bay Area family want to spend a 3-day weekend here when they could spend it in Seattle? What makes an employee want to work in the office when they could work from home? We had an awesome committee. Part of what I loved was that they brought so many perspectives from around our community. And really, that's what's interesting about cities. We all experience them a little bit differently through our own lens. And we started by thinking about what are the universal reasons people gather in central cities at all, and in this one in particular. Mike Wilkerson from Eco Northwest shared this quote with us that's on the screen, and it was a great starting place, but as we end our process, it also resonates with a lot of the reasons we agreed that people want to be in downtown Portland. It's unparalleled ability to facilitate human connection. One great example of human connection is that when this task force was announced, many of us had friends and associates reaching out. I received so many detailed letters with ideas about what we should do in the central city. Members of the public said, how can we help? So miraculously, on short notice and with the help of many talented facilitators, we actually created 24 listening sessions on a range of topics and geographic areas. We had over 250 participants representing a broad spectrum of community organizations, businesses, and central city neighborhoods. We also distributed a survey that received over 9,000 responses that helped to shape our committee's work, creating a framework for recommendations to drive Portland's recovery. So first, why do we care about central cities and Portland Central City in particular? Downtowns provide a unique benefit through concentration and when people are located near one another. First, matching, the ability for employers to draw from a deep pool of talent and for prospective employees to draw from a broad range of potential employers. Second, sharing, the ability to leverage infrastructure and supply chains. And third, learning, the collaboration and exchange of ideas. Portland Central City does all three of those things, and as a result, it has an outsized impact in jobs, income, and productivity that benefit the region and state economy. So in the spirit of optimism, we also want to remember we have a lot to work with. We're blessed with a stunning natural setting, surrounded by views of the Tualatin Mountains and the Cascade Mountains on the horizon. Few other cities have worked so intentionally to complement their natural gifts with investments in placemaking and infrastructure, including places like Tom McCall Waterfront Park and the East Bank Esplanade, which connect us to the Willamette River. Finally, by intention or accident of history, we have small downtown blocks, making our city walkable and human scaled, punctuated by abundant street trees and urban parks that form our urban forest. Our work to build a great city over the last 50 years means Portland is not competing to be a low-cost leader. Rather, we need to continue to build on our competitive and comparative advantages. So, the committee distilled the value proposition for Central City Portland into three elements. First, the region's shared gathering place. Next, an inclusive hub for innovation and opportunity. And last, an accessible urban community. Maybe the most visible, maybe the most visible and inclusive way that the Central City facilitates human connection is in its role as the region's premier gathering place, welcoming visitors from across the city, the region, the state, and the world. People come to celebrate arts and culture, attend events, indulge in world-class food, play in the parks, and cheer on their favorite team, sometimes in this room. Central City is also a gateway for visitors to Forest Park, the Willamette Valley, waterfalls, mountains, and the Oregon coast. Sorry, got a little slide misconnection. The setting for many public gatherings are public parks and plazas, which host major events in addition to day-by-day use by residents, shoppers, and downtown workers. Reinvigorating Portland requires accelerating the kinds of successful space activation that we see starting to reanimate Director Park and Pioneer Square, and working toward expanded roles for Waterfront Park, Darcel Plaza, and the park blocks. While we have lessons from the successes of the past, these activations are more important than ever in a new normal of hybrid work. Another conversation that rose to the top in the Value Proposition Committee is the value that arts and culture organizations bring to our community. Performing arts organizations in particular, the Nutcracker this month is going to drive tens of thousands of visits to downtown Portland. Thank you, Oregon Ballet Theater. All of these organizations drive tourism, create jobs, and they hold communities together, but many of them and their peers around the state are struggling and need our support. Funding of arts and culture is a public-private partnership that requires all of us. With state and local government resources to support these public-private partnerships, our arts organizations have indicated that they will be more stable and better positioned to generate private funding. In the process of brainstorming all the ways that we can activate Portland, it revealed actually that there's a tremendous amount of vision and ideas already in some stage of implementation. The Tea House is reopening at the Chinese Garden. Providence Park is bringing concerts back next summer. The Portland Art Museum expansion will be finished in 2025. And starting next weekend, the Woodsy Winter Village and Ice Rink will open at the foot of the Morrison Bridge. We have a lot to be excited about. The second element of the value proposition is the role that the Central City plays as a hub for innovation and opportunity. No other place in the state of Oregon has a concentration of employment and education that's found in Portland Central City. And it's connected to the region by an extensive transportation network. That makes the Central City a critical center of innovation and opportunity for residents, students, and entrepreneurs, where face-to-face connections build trust and chance encounters can create new partnerships. It can draw talented workers and forward-thinking employers and support the many educational institutions we have. We also need to support both our new and legacy businesses with technical assistance and affordable spaces to operate. The city has targeted a number of actions for the Central City and Prosper Portland's Advanced Portland strategy, and PBOT has refined and improved their program to facilitate street activation in partnership with small businesses. And again, we're seeing progress already. Nike just announced that they are reinvesting in the Central City through a large-scale renovation of their flagship store. That deserves applause. That's great news. Other employers are taking a chance on the Central City, like Jacobson Salt Company, TriMet, Panic, and Under You for Men. New retail storefronts are opening, like Bridge City Souls in Old Town, Hood River Distillers in downtown, or the Portland Vintage Market in the Pearl District. PSU is in the initial planning and design phase for a new home of its School of Art and Design. Dr. Ann Cudd was on our committee, which we appreciate so much, and she is leading PSU to expand its role at the heart of an urban academic district. The third element of Portland's Central City value proposition is its role as home to several residential communities. The Central City is home to tens of thousands of Portlanders who value its urban amenities, including world-class parks, transportation options, and proximity to jobs, education, and healthcare. Looking forward, we have the capacity to provide even more housing options for even more people. newborns and elders, students and professionals, and young families. We can make more places where everything they need is a short walk or right away. The library, the grocery store, the doctor's office, the playground. In our new normal, office workers' share of foot traffic has decreased pretty much everywhere due to hybrid work. Residents and visitors are playing and will continue to play a larger role in activating our streets and public spaces and our thriving retail environment. We can already see the benefits of residential density when we look at the effect that residents have on business stability in balanced areas like the Pearl, Goose Hollow, West End, and the South Waterfront. We have an opportunity to increase overall housing production by over 20,000 units in the next 10 years, with strategies like incentives for production, conversion of office buildings to residential, historic preservation, and ensuring affordable rental and ownership options are a significant part of the housing mix. When I say capacity, it's not just space. In fact, we have within the Central City today several major district redevelopments in various stages of planning and development, including the Albina Vision, the OMSI District, Broadway Corridor, and the Lloyd Center redevelopment. These are exactly the kinds of collaborative public-private partnerships that have contributed significant additions to the Central City residential population in the past and that we need to invest in for the future. So those are the three elements of the value proposition, but there's an additional thread through all three elements and the value proposition itself. A number of participants in the task force, our committee, and our public listening sessions pointed out that we have an opportunity to create a Central City value proposition for the future that extends that value to more people than the Central City value proposition of the past. Key to every element and action here is the ability to support, promote, and provide opportunities for members of our community who haven't always felt welcomed or included in Portland's success story. Thank you. From small business growth to arts and culture to housing and education, we can build back better with targeted investments in an inclusive economy and community. So I won't take too long on this since we're a little over time. There's lots of ways to support. If you're still looking for ways to support, this is a few ideas. We're going to put a more broad list out because we did hear so many people saying, what can I do? And so that was a big takeaway from the committee. We need a list somewhere posted where people can just pick up, make a donation, donate their time, and we're going to do it. So I'd like to finish as I started with a sense of optimism. It's difficult to bring so many leaders together around a shared sense of direction, but this process proved that the public and private sector have a common interest and a shared sense of urgency in making Portland a thriving, welcoming heart of our region and state. It's hard to believe, but we are the only city that is so intentionally linking arms with the state, county, and private sector to address these issues. I want to thank Governor Kotek for assembling the task force, and now it's time to amplify this work and seek more and more ways for public and private sectors to collaborate on these actions. Because as all these signs say, Portland is what we make it. Thank you. So now I have the pleasure of introducing a dance company whose motto is, I kid you not, optimism in motion. One of the bright lights of Portland's arts community, Jamey Hampton and BodyVox.
Hi, everyone. It's a real honor to be here today, representing the Portland dance community to all of you. I've been listening a lot to what's been going on today, the governor, the mayor, Nolan. I will say this, all of us in this room share the legacy. We are all stewards of a shared legacy. And that legacy is this beautiful place we call Portland. And whether we want to admit it or not, we didn't invent Portland. We tried to re-envision it, and we will pass it on to the next generation. What we do now makes a difference to the next generation. And in 40 years, there'll be a whole different group of people sitting in here talking about what's wrong with Portland and how can we make it better. And so today we are going to we're going to have some optimism in motion. I really appreciate the way that everyone in the room is trying to put their shoulders to the wheel and come together on shared crises and shared opportunities. I will tell you this, I speak a lot with arts leaders, not just in Portland, but around the country. I don't know a single arts organization that doesn't convey to me that they feel vulnerable, stressed, economically unpredictable, all of that. And a lot of it comes from all of us getting hammered, like everyone here did, from 20 to 22. Re-emerging is really tricky. Audiences are down. Foundation support is down for the arts because they're supporting human services. I know this for a fact, however. There is not a single city in the history of mankind that was successful that didn't have a vibrant arts ecosystem. I was sort of laughing. I looked on my phone about Dubai today. Probably the wealthiest city in the world. They have incredible arts that they've built, the government has built. So from my chair, I think that as a community, we could find a way to support the arts a little bit more, because a vibrant downtown Portland will push the negative out and allow the positive to come back in. If you don't have viable performance spaces and restaurants, public markets, festivals, what comes into that vacuum is what we've been seeing over the last 2 or 3 years. Our role at BodyVox is to create a dance center that has 65 classes a week and 450 people come through there. We host dance companies, the opera, the symphony, chamber music Northwest. We host emerging artists who don't have a voice or a public forum for their voice. We're trying to be an engine for this city, and I'll call it an engine of optimism. With that in mind, this is a piece that we're going to do called Urban Meadow. And if you ever saw Toy Story, and you know that the toys all come alive at night, I think this is what happens at Tanner Creek Park when we're all asleep at night. This is what goes on. Thank you very much for having us, and thank you to Duncan Weiss. Thank you, Duncan.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm not going to dance for you. I'm not. But another round of applause for Optimism in Motion, BodyVox. I'd like to thank all of our speakers today. You know, I often say that solving problems isn't just about the money. We can always use more of that in everything we do. But it's about how we use the resources that we have. And what that really comes down to is people. Sometimes while we're trying to solve for the what and the how, we have to elevate and remember the who. As we close this segment of today's program, I want you to know that I am moved by the care and the commitment and the knowledge that each of the people you've heard from today on the stage are bringing to Portland's challenges. And I am moved by the hundreds, probably thousands, who are not on this stage, who are rising to the occasion to solve problems here in the Central City and throughout this area every single day. I know we have lunch coming up, but give me one more minute. I'm asking everyone here to take a moment to think of something that you personally can do to make Portland a better place. Yes, is that a comfortable moment where you actually have to think? Think about what you can do for Portland. Doesn't have to be today, doesn't have to even be this week, but I need everyone to do something to help. It could be supporting a small business in the Central City, who frankly are having a hard time right now. It could be donating to a nonprofit that you know is doing great work. You can take a volunteer shift. I hear that Vanessa Sturgeon is looking for some folks to pick up some trash. I will be out there with you, so you can volunteer. It can also be serving as an ambassador about the new vision here in Portland. When you're talking with your friends, your family, when you're on social media, your business networks, both locally and nationally, or wherever you make yourself heard. I said earlier that I asked the task force members to commit to one principle. Don't dwell on the past, apply its lessons to the future. This is about the future. Now I'm asking the same of all of you. Thank you for your attention and engagement and enthusiasm today to be part of this conversation. And I also want to thank all the sponsors who helped make this event happen, because we can be here today and engage together to solve problems. So thank you for being here. I think we're going to hear from Joth, and we're going to head to lunch. And thank you, and we'll see you after the lunch hour. Thanks, everybody.
All right, everybody, thanks for sticking around. Let's see how we're doing over here. He's coming around, all right? We're coming around, he's feeling good. Still got some work to do. See how this unfolds over next. We got a couple more hours, so we'll be around, okay? All right, we're a little behind schedule. We're gonna make up a little time. So 12:45, we're gonna come back. We've got Derek interviewing Governor Kotek coming out of lunch. So lunch is on either side of the room if you haven't already got it already. Thanks for hanging around. What a spectacular morning at the Leadership Summit, and we'll look forward to an even more spectacular afternoon. Thanks, everybody.